So let's get into Act 1, the greeting. I think the very first step in Act 1 is respecting the lead. And again, I've talked to you about what a lead means and who they are. I'm going to assume that you're taking this course with the understanding that we have respect for leads, but I'm also going to introduce a couple of things just in case their business is doing these things, we need to be careful not to. Not respecting the lead means things like, for example, not letting somebody answer the phone who isn't accountable to convert these callers into appointments. If it's just somebody who, they might have all good intentions, but if they're not accountable for actually converting the caller into an appointment, then it's not making the best use of that very, very expensive lead. It's not respecting the value of that lead. So during office hours, somebody accountable has to be answering the phone. Somebody with training and somebody who is clear and ready to make an appointment. Asking leads to call you back later because you might be busy, because they might be interrupting you and doing something else, that's not respecting the lead. Again, it might have cost £200 to £300 or euros to get this lead to call. It's really crazy not to engage that person right when they phone. Asking them to call you back later is not the right way to do this. Taking a lead's details and calling them back later, well, it might sound like a decent idea, but again, by the time you've called them back, a number of different things might have happened. Number one, they might be engaged with other people. I know that when I make phone calls, if I don't get resolution after the first, I just simply go to the next. I'll start calling other people, and whoever gets me on their bus first is the person I'm going to go with. So by the time you even get to call me back, I might say to you, I've already made an appointment. Sorry, it's too late. So calling them back later sounds like a good idea, but it really isn't. I know that in some cases you have to take details and you have to call people back later. If you don't call them back, that's even worse. So not only have you potentially lost that patient to somebody else because they haven't stopped while you're busy, potentially they might in fact get very, very upset the fact that you don't call them back. So not collecting information is part of that. Treating the lead like an interruption of your real work is not the way to do this. This is why I suggest that people in clinics are in a separate room focused entirely on answering phone calls as opposed to being at reception, which is what you often see, because clinics don't always tend to treat answering phone calls as seriously as I might want them to. Dealing with patients who are right in front of you and trying to have these kinds of conversations, that's not going to be very effective. The typical things that get in the way of doing this right are the physical location of where you are taking the phone calls. It should be private. It should be devoid of noise. You should have the ability to focus, and you shouldn't be facing a bunch of different distractions. Importantly is to have the time to be able to deal with people for, again, between 10 to 25 minutes of length, uninterrupted, without people texting you or without having to do email or without people walking in and talking to you while you're on the phone, interrupting you, and also without having the constant buzzing of another line chiming into the phone call, distracting you and trying to get you off the phone. As well, it's also quite important that you have all the technology that is necessary. You have to have a place where you can fill in the information, a computer that is fast, something that you can put information into that stores it in a retrievable format. All of those things are important to have for this to work. And it's all part of respecting the lead and this function of doing this right. Of course, not understanding what a lead is worth is what leads to all of this lack of respect. So this is why it's really, really important to remember what that cost is. Again, I'll reiterate, we're not talking about a pound or two here. We're talking about 200 to 300 pounds or 200 to 300 euros is what every single lead costs. So it's really, really important to be able to deal with these people at exactly the moment that they phone, so that you can make the very, very best out of that opportunity.